My name is Corey Rutledge. I'm 37 years old. Today is April 19th, 2008, and I'm here in Sacramento, California, and I am interviewing my wife.
I'm Tamara Watson. I'm 38 years old. It's April 19th, 2008, in Sacramento, California, and I am being interviewed by my husband, Corey.
So, Tamara, take me back to November 16th, 2003, the day we met. Where were you in your life at that time?
Um, so it was on the 16th. I always think it was the 17th.
I think it was the 16th. That's what I wrote down. Yeah, November
Okay, well,
16th.
you're more accurate than I am. Um, so I was working for a local car dealership, and the International Auto Show was in town, and of course, I had to do some time there. So I was working there and of course helping people that were looking at cars, and it was kind of an exciting day because I had kind of sweet talked this guy who had all these exotic cars into letting me sit in a Lamborghini and a Rolls Royce, which I knew was something I would never have the opportunity to do again. And they never let people do that. The people there to see the cars, they just let them kind of stand behind the rope and look at them. Um, so anyhow, that was kind of a fun part of the day, and I think it was about towards the winding down of my time at this event, and someone was looking at one of the vehicles my company had there, and which was your mother, of course, and so I was just talking to her about it, and I remember her big thing was she wanted a car that could fit four people and four golf clubs, and it was one of the first cars she saw that could do that.
Oh, 4 bags of golf clubs.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, not four individual clubs. Um, and so we were just chatting, and then you walked up, and she's talking to you, and I was uh, you were there just kind of being amiable, and then you just kind of kept hanging around being amiable but not really talking, which was a little bizarre. And your mom left, and yet you were still there.
So it really did it seem bizarre at that time?
um,
My actions.
no, well, actually, it just seemed kind of indecisive. I guess that should have been an indication.
An indication of things to come.
Yeah,
Little cues that we miss, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, I really loved the Mini Cooper back then. I still do. I don't have one yet, but so I wanted to go sit in one, go get inside one, and see what the legroom was like. And they're so small, and I'm kind of tall and a little above average anyway. So I wanted to see if it had enough legroom and headroom. So and my mom at the time was getting ready to buy a new car, and she'd kind of narrowed it down to about 8 different models, which I guess isn't narrowing it down very far at all, and wanted to go to the auto show to narrow it down even further. So I said, okay, well, why don't we go together then? So her and her partner Lisa and I went to Cal Expo that day, and it was a Sunday, I think, and as it turned out, which actually wouldn't have made any difference as far as me meeting you, but as it turned out, the Minis were right next to the Volvos. So I was checking out the Minis, and my mom and Elisa went ahead to the Volvos to look at the model she was looking at. And when I caught up to them, you were showing them the car that she eventually bought, actually. And you went to show her. We walked over. I remember we walked over you were gonna show her a color. It wasn't. It was a different. It was a color on a different model, and we were standing there, and she and Elisa walked away, and I think she sort of knew. Mom was never shy about trying to fix me up in any way possible, and I think she sort of knew there might be some sort of opportunity or something. So I think, and I'm not sure about this, but I think they sort of walked away on purpose to sort of leave us alone there. And I remember standing there and not knowing what to say, but not wanting to say something stupid just to say something. So I just would remain quiet. And
Always the consummate perfectionist.
yeah, I guess, or fearful of my nerddom coming out too early in a potential relationship. So, but eventually you were very talkative, or not very talkative, but you were very easy to talk to. So you started talking, and we started talking that way. And what do you remember? Do you remember the conversation that we had much, or what it was like?
I remember, well, I remember talking about the bratty kids bouncing up on the cars, and that just stressed me out because, as you know, I don't like children. And then parents not watching them. And then I just remember like some jokes about J-Lo and I think I was telling you about the Rolls Royce that I sat in and I don't remember much else other than that it was friendly and kind of humorous and not really flirtatious or anything, just kind of a compatible sense of humor between the two of us that just kind of was easy. Do you remember any more details about what we were talking about?
I don't. You remember more details than I do. I don't remember the J-Lo jokes. That's funny. But I remember focusing in on some clues. Like I was trying to pick up some clues from what you were saying because I obviously didn't know anything about you at the time, and so I was trying to figure out if you were single or if you had kids and I don't remember you talking about the bratty kids, but I guess that probably would have given me some indication. But the one thing that I do remember specifically for some reason, which I guess I remember it because it was the biggest clue in my mind, was that you said, for some reason, you said that you didn't carry anyone in your car very often. So you're mostly driving by yourself. So that sort of told me that you probably didn't have kids. And it sort of indicated that you probably didn't have a significant other at the time. So I thought, so it seemed like it would be okay to sort of pursue asking you out. So I think it was kind of it was towards the end of our conversation. I sort of remember us talking for maybe 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, something like that. And it wasn't until like the end I'd sort of determined that I wanted to see if I could get your number or something like that. And do you remember how we kind of parted? Like,
yeah, I had to get to a Kings game, which I normally never go to, but because I'm not the sports fan. But I remember when I was talking to you, I was a little bit having to watch the clock because my friend Kathy had obtained tickets to this game, and I said I'd go, and so I had to be out by a certain time. So I remember having to end our conversation because I had to say that I had to get going.
yes, and you handed me a business card. It wasn't yours exactly. It was like your boss's or something because you didn't have any.
Oh, yeah.
And you wrote your name on it, and you said to give this, have my mom call you. And I said, do you remember what I said? I said, is it okay if I call you? And do you kind of remember, like, what did you think of that? Did you have any idea that I was kind of aiming towards asking you out, or did it just not even occur to you at that time? Because I knew you were kind of a hurry to leave. So.
Yeah, I guess at that point, that was kind of a clear indication. And I kind of, in my cynical nature, was like, well, yeah, you can call, but don't expect much more than a phone call. I just wasn't at a place where I really cared, to be honest, whether you were asking me out or not.
So that brings me to a good sort of tangential point, I guess I wanted to ask you about where you were, like, in your life at that stage in terms of like, were you seeing somebody else? Were you single at the time? Were you unattached? Or
I was very recently very, very recently unattached. Nothing that had any sort of drama to it or any heartache or anything like that. So it was a pretty easy unattachment, but I was just very okay with it and just happy to live my life on my own without really looking for anyone or anything to fill anything, or just kind of in a place where I just wanted to really be autonomous and really enjoy that time.
So you weren't really looking for meeting anyone else at the time then?
No, not by any means.
So I remember after we parted ways when you left, I caught up with my mom and Elisa, and we walked out of the building, and I, of course, told them that I showed them the card that you gave me, and told them that, that I'd asked if I could call you, and I remember we were walking, I guess, to another building, and I was kicking myself because I was telling them that I was mad at myself because I wanted to be more proactive in asking you out instead of it sort of being at the end, kind of a last minute gasp. I wanted to actually make the move and say, can I have your number? Can I call you sometime or something like that, as opposed to you handing me your number and me saying, can I use this?
Exploiting a.
Yeah, it wasn't as assertive as I'd hoped I would be, but.
So how come you weren't?
I think I was just kind of waiting for the right. Like I said, it wasn't till towards the end of that conversation that I really decided that's what I wanted to do, and so at that point I didn't have a whole lot of time, unbeknownst to me at the time, but there wasn't a whole lot of time between that point and when you left, and even if I had a lot of time, my tendency in situations like that is to sort of wait for the right moment, which never exactly comes. So I'm kind of waiting for a moment that it doesn't exactly present itself as perfectly as as one hopes in their mind. So I tend to kind of wait a little long on the situations like that. But at least, I kind of made do at the end there with, before you left.
So had I not had a business card to pass to you, would we not be sitting here today?
No, I would have said something. It just would have been very awkward. It would have been rushed. I would have said something like, "Can I call you?" or something like that. Or I'd really like to see you again. Could I call you at at the dealership or something like that? I definitely would have said something. It just it would have been awkward just because you're rushing out in a sense. You weren't actually physically rushing out, but practically, and so it just would have been a little awkward, and you probably would have been maybe a little annoyed, like, I gotta go, but yeah, call me, whatever, or something like that. I don't know. So anyway, so that was when we met. So I called you. That was a Sunday, and I called you the following Tuesday. So I guess it was like 2 days later. I called you at the dealership, and you happened to be off that day. So I left a message, and you came into work on Wednesday and got the message. And do you remember what you thought when you got the message, or if you thought anything?
Well, my first thought, because on the message you had given your work number and an evening number, and my first thought was, wow, he wants to make sure I can get a hold of him. Because usually most people just leave one number, but it's like you left every possible means of tracking you down, which kind of made me laugh to myself a little bit.
Did it smack of desperation or something?
Well, no, because then on the other hand, I was also surprised that you called, because, it's just so typical that someone asks for a number and then you don't hear from them again. But usually that's always in a scenario where you're wanting someone to call that they don't call. Anyhow, so I just remember I got the message and was surprised that you called, and I think I called you back intentionally at a number where I knew I would get a message. Is that right? Or did I actually talk to you?
I don't remember. I remember talking to you from work, but I don't know if that was the first time you called. Maybe no. I think I have a vague memory of us maybe kind of playing phone tag a little bit. Did maybe you leave a message for me and then I called you back at the dealership or something like
Oh, I
that?
think that's what. Yeah, that because I do remember at first intentionally calling at a number where I figured out or I would hope that I would not reach you.
Oh, so probably my home number
Yeah.
during the day.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's why I
Just to
gave
make
you that
things
number so you could
easier.
have that out if you need.
Yeah, so actually that was a good thing.
So okay, so we talked then, and we didn't. I just asked. I remember just asking you out, saying if we could. And I remember wanting to keep it casual, and so I asked if you would meet me for a drink. And so we didn't talk very much outside of that, as I recall. And we met at the Monkey Bar on 28th and Capitol. I think the following Monday. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the 24th, right? So yeah, that would have been 8 days later. Yeah. So how are you feeling? I mean, here you are, you're meeting this guy for drinks and that you don't know very well. So how are you feeling kind of leading up to that night? I mean, how are you feeling that day as far as, with this impending date?
Well, I was really dreading it actually. I don't know why I agreed to it. Yeah, I was dreading it, but I knew that I would go because I said I would go. I just didn't see what would come of it, or because it's not like there was any kind of chemistry between us, or anything that really stuck out.
And you dreading it for any other reasons? Or is that the gist of it?
No, yeah, there's kind of the gist of it. It just seemed like it was going to be a waste of time.
Is it because you figured that if we had any sort of chemistry at all, that you would have got some glimpse of it when the day we met or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I would, yeah.
So, so what did you think about how did the date, so we meet at the Monkey Bar and we were there for, as I recall, a couple of hours. And, so we finally got to really talk. What were your impressions? Or what were you thinking of me as far as how that went and your impressions and that sort of thing?
Well, I remember feeling like I was like too aggressive, not in a just. I remember talking a lot, which it's not something that I'm normally one to do. But I think because I felt like I had nothing to lose, I so didn't care how it went that I just sort of went off about whatever. And so I felt like you were a little bit bulldozed in the conversation, that I just dominated it. And I just remember you kept adjusting your coaster, which I found kind of endearing because I do the same thing all the time. You were very fidgety with your hands, and that was kind of something I could relate to because I'm the same way. And I was really hungry, and I kept waiting for you to say, "Oh, well, let's order some food," and that never happened. And I was just absolutely famished. So that was odd.
You must have been so annoyed at that time, at that point.
Yeah, that wasn't ideal. And I couldn't believe that you weren't hungry, and so I just figured, well, you must have eaten beforehand. And then I thought, well, that's kind of tacky, since it wasn't a really late date, it was at a dinner time. So I don't know how you expected me to get through it without eating.
Oh God, I feel bad now. I didn't even think about it at the time. No, I don't remember what time we met, but I think I ate something and then before walking over to meet you. And so I wasn't hungry, but I don't Yes, I didn't even think about it. Yeah, how rude is that? So what were some of the high and low points from that discussion that night? I mean, did
Oh,
you
there were no high points.
not a single one except for maybe the coaster fidgeting part?
Yeah, there were.
What were some of the what were some of the low points then? Like how low did it go?
Well, as you know, like the biggest one was because I'm a person that's very passionate about things, and I do enjoy talking about things that I'm really passionate about, and so I had like gone on some rant for probably 15 minutes just talking about all different things that were really important to me, and so I asked you what you were passionate about, and it just flopped because your response was nothing. And I didn't even know how to respond to that. And I did, yeah. And I think I excused myself to go use the bathroom, and because I didn't even know how to recover from that.
So did so you obviously that was an answer that you were not expecting at all.
No,
Just a,
I mean, I couldn't even imagine it, that answer.
yeah, well, I remember not wanting to. I thought making something up would be obvious. I thought it would come off kind of disingenuous, and so I remember thinking, well, or sort of taking the. I thought the lesser of the two evils would be just to admit that I wasn't passionate about anything. But I also remember, because I remember when you excused yourself to go use the restroom and you came back, and as I was sitting there, I had time to think about it, and like knowing that that didn't come off very well, especially with somebody, to somebody that is very passionate about several things in her life. Um, so I sort of I said something that I was trying to recover
Yeah.
from it. I said something like. Well, I don't play an instrument, but I feel like I'm passionate about music or something like that.
Yeah.
That was probably it. I imagine that was kind of a little too little, a little too late at that point. Or what did you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was something. But I mean, at that point, you must have been feeling like it was a complete mismatch as well.
I was just feeling that didn't occur to me necessarily. I didn't think of it in that terms. I just thought that I was flopping, basically. That I was not going over well at all, and just very conscious about that, very self-conscious about it, and so I don't remember how much longer after that we talked, um, but I remember I ended the date in what was pointed out to me later as in a very kind of awkward fashion, and it was for a good reason. I didn't want, because we'd had two drinks each, and I didn't want you to think. And we were still talking, and we were both done with our drinks, and so it's like I could have said, "Oh, would you like another drink?" But I didn't want you
Or
to
some
think.
food.
Yeah, all the food I didn't even think about. Um, but uh, I didn't want you to think that I was trying to like liquor you up, so to speak. So I just said, and I think we'd been there. I think it was a little over 2 hours, probably, maybe approaching three. I'm not sure. I don't know if you remember, but I just said, "So do you want to call it?" And as I've heard from you since then, that kind of came across very weird.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that? Like,
Oh, I was shocked. I was like, "Are you for real?" I mean, who says that on a date? And it wasn't 2 hours because we met like at 7, and I remember I was in the Jim Boys drive-through on the phone to Kathy, telling her my date was over at 9.
It's just less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we ended the day where I remember walking you to your car, which was around the block, and I remember feeling it was very apparent that we were both pretty lukewarm about about the date, and I don't remember exactly what I said, or I don't know if I said I'd. I don't even think I said I'd call you or anything because I wasn't sure at that point. I didn't want
No,
to.
I think you did.
Oh, did I?
You did actually, and I can remember thinking it seemed. I was surprised. Well, I was surprised for one that you said you'd call because it just didn't seem to be going that well. So I either thought you were oblivious to how kind of nothing there seemed to be, or you just had nothing better going on, so you figure out I might as well. But when you said that you would call, it was very genuine in a way that it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Because when you said, I thought he is gonna call, there was like no doubt. It really came across like that.
Oh, really? So it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like somebody saying that as a matter of course, whether they meant it or not.
No, not at all. That was what was kind of so unique about it, was that I knew as soon as you said it, I was like, he is gonna call. I had not a doubt in my mind.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, and I remember kissing you on your cheek, I think, and we parted ways. And so what? So what did you do immediately after that? So you kind of touched upon that, but you of course headed for the Jim Boys drive-through.
Yeah, which was 2 blocks away.
To get
because I was starving.
Yeah, and you're immediately on the phone to your best friend Kathy to tell her what a horrible date it was.
Yeah.
What did you tell her?
Well, because it was kind of funny because at the time she had been on a few dates with a guy who had yet to try to kiss her. So she was mystified about what's going on. And here we were laughing about it because I go, you're dating someone who won't kiss you, and I'm dating someone who calls a night after an hour and a half. So we had some jokes about that.
That's funny. So how did you feel? I mean, coming away from that date, were you dreading? You said that you honestly felt like I was going to call you again, that I meant it when I said that. Were you kind of dreading that? And you must have been to some degree, or were you just like,
yeah, I just didn't know what I was going to do, if I was going to go out with you again, or I kind of thought, yeah, I really didn't know. All I knew was that you were going to call.
I remember thinking that, that I wasn't really thrilled about how the date went either. But it wasn't that I was unimpressed with you. It was more that I felt like I just kind of went over like a lead balloon. And I guess that's a little self-absorbed. I don't really know, but I think oftentimes in the past, my feeling about how good a date it was is based on how well I was perceived, and I knew that I wasn't perceived with you very well at all. So it didn't feel like the date went very well at all. But I remember thinking about it, and I thought to myself, so often, or not so often, because it wasn't like I was dating a lot by any means, but I mean, I'll go out on a date and it'll be a really good date, and I'll, sparks, and all that. And I'll be really interested in the person, and I'll want to, see him again. And then it just sort of fizzles for whatever reason, on either person's part or both parts. And it just, so it's like it's like a roller coaster. It's like it's big high, and then it just sort of drops out. And I thought to myself, just why not do something a little differently? Why not pursue something that isn't creating this big high for you right from the beginning? And maybe it'll just sort of, maybe you'll come across a different outcome than some of the past failures, or maybe it'll just start from a more real place as opposed to this kind of unrealistic kind of high that people can get on a first, good date or whatever. So I think it was, I called you a couple days after that. Maybe it was the next day. I don't remember exactly, but I remember you saying on the first date that you didn't have any Thanksgiving plans. That Thanksgiving Day was around the corner, I think the next week. And so I remember thinking about this for quite some time because it seemed like a really awkward thing to do. But I said, I'm going to invite her over for Thanksgiving. I was going to my mom's for Thanksgiving. And so I called you, and I think I left you a message to that degree, or to that effect, inviting you. Yeah, I left you a message, and it was kind of a weird thing to do, but something told me to, what the heck? I mean, even if you don't go, it's no big deal. And so do you remember getting that message? Do you remember thinking what you thought about that?
Yeah, I remember getting it, and it was kind of odd, because the holidays are such personal. Well, in one note, they're real personal time for families, but then they're supposed to be sort of this goodwilling and welcome anyone and everyone off the street type of thing. Um, and yeah, it just seemed very genuine. I mean, something that was funny was that I recall you putting a lot of pre-qualifiers to the invitation, like saying this isn't a charity case and this isn't. It's kind of like you didn't want me to read into the invitation all the wrong things that could potentially be read into it. And but I decided not to go because I would have felt very awkward, and I never regretted that. I am glad I didn't go because it would have been awkward, and so I intentionally again called it a number that I knew I wouldn't reach you to leave you the message that I wasn't going, and I didn't think I would hear from you again. I thought after that I thought, well, he did call like he said he would, and then I thought that would be it, that I wouldn't hear from you ever again.
I was so calculating with using those numbers with the voicemail. Yeah, I remember being kind of glad that you decided not to go. I mean, I wouldn't have been bummed if you accepted the invitation, but it would have been. You're right. It would have been awkward. I mean, it would have been awkward for me too. It would have. But I was glad. I didn't regret inviting you at all. I mean, I was glad to do that, and so I think that I then called you like the next weekend. It was like probably maybe after Thanksgiving. So it's probably a good 4 or 5 days later, maybe something like that. And it was a Sunday, and I called to ask you out again, and we ended up talking for quite a long time. And do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, because you called and left a message. You wanted to take me out to dinner. And I remember being very stressed because I had to tell you that I was just recently out of a relationship. And so I just didn't think that would work well, and I really didn't know how to approach that. And I didn't want to lead you on by any means. I just remember feeling this burden to be very clear about that because it hadn't come up previously, and I didn't want another encounter to go on without it being known. And so I called you with every intention of declining your invitation, and being the procrastinator about things that I am, I just kept talking to put off having to bring up all these unpleasant things. And before I knew it, like, we had been on the phone for about an hour and a half, and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It was intellectually stimulating and easy and jovial, and it just felt so in sync. And it was literally a phone conversation that changed my life, because that was, I mean, it all changed right there. I called up to say I wasn't going to go out, and these were the reasons why. And then that was just such a distinct turning point.
Yeah, for both of us, it sounds like, I mean, particularly for you, because I know you said that, you told me before that you weren't, that your view of me really changed during that conversation. And but it was after that conversation for the first time that I was really looking forward to that second date. I mean, prior to that, I wasn't as much. I mean, I wanted to, see you again, to kind of give it a bit more of a chance. But I wasn't like really enthusiastic about it. Um, but I remember really enjoying that conversation. And it just felt really easy and well, all those things you said. I mean, for both me too, it was intellectually stimulating, and it was easy, and it was fun, and we laughed, and yeah. So that was a really a real turning point for us. And we went out to dinner. I think it was like the next night. It was a Monday, wasn't it? Was it the next?
Or Tuesday? I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. But it was soon after that, and we went. I picked you up, and we walked. Well, I came over to your place, and we walked like a block around the block to a Japanese place, and we had dinner. And I remember making the mistake. You offered to pay for half the dinner, and I remember making the mistake of accepting that offer. And I didn't hear the end of that for a while.
You're still not hearing the end of it.
Yeah, still not hearing the end of it. It's been almost 5 years. But I remember after the dinner, we decided to go on a walk. I don't remember whose idea that was, but we decided to go on a walk around. We kind of walked around Capitol Park. And do you remember who suggested that?
I think I did.
Did you?
Yeah, because I couldn't think of anything else to do. I mean, I wanted to spend more time with you, but I wasn't gonna invite you to my apartment, so it seemed like a safe alternative.
Yeah, that was it was kind of the start of sort of a theme of our relationship, that walk. I mean, we walked around Capitol Park, like I said, and talked a lot more. And then we became known even to other people, like my mom. I mean, not a lot of other people, but people who were hearing the stories about our dates and stuff, about, the walking couple kind of. We would always incorporate a lot of walking in our dates, especially around downtown. And so it became a real theme of our relationship, and still is. We still do a lot of walking together. We like to live downtown or in Midtown so that we'd have a lot of places to walk to. But that date, it was, I remember I kissed you for the first time. I was very nervous and not very smooth, but I kissed you at the end of that date, and I was just kind of over the hill, over the moon, or however you put it, by that point, and I was just sold. And from then on, that courtship progressed very well, I thought.
Yeah.
And now we've been married for almost 2 years.
Yep.
And I love you very much.
I love you too.